All right, so we touched a little bit on the flash setup, but not really the particulars about the operation of it and how to actually get it to work. So let's go ahead and break down a little bit more equipment and take a look at some of these settings inside the flash. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and we've got our flash here. You notice I got my rectangular head back on here. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that on and get it running. Okay, there we go. Now, we are going to cover some of the settings on the back side of this. I do want to go over some of them, but I want to go over some of the modifiers that we have first and kind of what their purpose is and how to use them. So along with your kit equipment, you also got this little bag that looks like this. It's got some different equipment in it. Let's go ahead and pull some of this stuff out. I'll go through them in an order that I think makes sense here. Go ahead and set this aside. So what this is this is a little attachment that goes actually on the end of your flash. It's got these little barn doors on it. So go ahead, we can just spring those open just a little bit, open it up. You can see it's a rectangle. And now we're going to want to snap it on here. This is a little bit challenging. I'm not sure why it always has to be so challenging, but it kind of is to get it to snap on there. Get it just like that. And it should snap on both sides if it's secure, and it shouldn't just pop right off right away. So we kind of got it on there now, and that looks like the way that it should be. These little flaps on here, this unit right here is called a barn door unit. And what you can do is actually put this on here. And if you want to prevent the light from, let's say, hitting the ground, you can go ahead and move this flap up just a little bit so that when the light comes out here and it goes straight out, it prevents it from going down and hitting the ground. You can do the same thing with directions. If you want it to go a certain direction, you can create a little bit of a focused narrow beam by doing something like that. If you don't want it to go high, you can go ahead and do this and move this one down. So these are barn doors, and then this unit can be used just like this without having any other accessories or pieces on here. And I should also note that you won't, there are times when you won't use any accessories on here. It'll just simply be the flash head like this. That's all you'll need to use. You'll need to put it on a light stand, and then you can go ahead and do your assignment and do your projects like that. But for the times when we actually do need to use some of these different accessories, I want to make sure that you guys know how to get them all set up. Okay, we've got that on there. So the next thing that I kind of want to talk about is this little guy right here. This is what we call a honeycomb grid. And you can see, even the light from my camera, you see how it doesn't really go through this honeycomb, but once it gets to a certain angle, it does go through. It's kind of a cool little effect. So what it is it's about 1/4 inch thick, and this piece goes in here and it just fits right in to that slot. You just push it in with a little bit of pressure, and now it stays. And what it does is it prevents the light from spreading all over. It creates more of a focused light. So the output of this, if you were to shoot this at a wall, you would actually see more of a circle on the wall. Without that honeycomb piece, you would light up the entire wall. It'd be really wide. So this is a way to actually focus some of that light. Very useful when, say you have a bride and groom that you're shooting, or a high school senior, and you just want to light them while they're leaning up against, say, a tree, right, or a wall. And you don't want to light the entire environment. You want a little bit more of that spotlight effect. This is where something like this comes in and is really useful, because you can control that light and you can have it just hit the couple or the person and not have it spread and cover the entire tree and it cover the entire wall. Sometimes you want to do that, but sometimes you want to actually control the light and not have it go in places that you don't want to light and show the emphasis on. So the next thing that we're going to talk about are these little pieces here. You can see we got gels. These are of all different colors that come with this. We've got green, we've got yellow, we've got blue, and we've got red. And these are clear pieces of plastic that can just slide in here. And you can see as I do this, they're magnetic. So we're just going to put this on here, and it's actually just going to stick right on there, right? To get it off, you can go ahead and just peel it right off. But let's go ahead and put this on here. I'm going to fire this up, turn it on, and I'm going to shoot at this wall behind me, and maybe we'll see if it actually lights it up or not. Let's take a look. Oh, it's hard to see on camera because my frame rate. There you go. So a little bit of yellow in there that actually lit it up. We'll put this on the camera, and shoot with a lens here a little bit later and see what we can get for results that way, also to show you the effects of some of this stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and actually take this modifier piece off at this point, because I want to go through some of the settings with you guys and show you how to actually get this set up and go through some of the different modes. Good thing for us is that this Godox AD200 is a pretty darn simple unit to use. It is not overly complicated, which is something that I really like. Like I said, power buttons on the side. Once we turn the power button on, you can see that we got some different menu options in here. As we look at this, we've got a red light here. This is your test light. And if you hit that, it will actually flash. Right? So we haven't introduced the camera part of this yet, but this is something that I always do. Once I get my flash set up and it's all ready, I want to go ahead and test it and make sure that the batteries are worked, or that the flash head didn't get damaged, or it doesn't have water damage, or whatever million other reasons why a flash wouldn't work. But I'm going to go ahead and hit that button, make sure it flashes. Next thing that we're going to talk about up here in, must be the top left for you guys, is the mode button. You can see on mine that I'm actually in a mode that says M. It shows right up there at the top in the middle, and that is for manual mode, which means you control the power of the flash. If you go to 1:1, and I'll show you that here in a little bit, that's full power. If you go down to 1/256, that's just a little kiss of light. It's nothing that's super powerful. And everything in between is available just by rotating this. So before I go ahead and experiment with that, I'm going to show you the other modes. The other modes include multi-mode. So multi-mode is where it takes a series of flashes. Do. This is also called stroboscopic. And what's kind of cool about this is that you can freeze motion. You can have a ball bounce across this table, and you can take one photo of it. You can open that shutter up for maybe a full second, and you can set the flash to go boom, 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 and capture that ball bouncing across the table. And it will look like a series of photos that's been composited together, but it's really just a single frame. So stroboscopic mode is another one that's on this flash. If we go ahead and try to turn, it doesn't seem all that bright. The other mode that we go into once we hit this is TTL mode. So TTL mode is through the lens, that's what it stands for. And what it does is it allows the camera and the trigger and the flash to all talk. It's kind of an auto mode, but it's not my favorite, and it's not super popular in the industry. From what I've seen, is that most people prefer manual, where they can easily adjust the power of the flash and have it be more powerful or less powerful. When you start dealing with TTL through the lens, your camera is actually using the lens, and it's reading the scene, and then it's sending that information back to your flash and telling it how powerful it needs to be for that scene. But the flash doesn't ever know what effect I'm trying to get. Doesn't really know. It's trying to light for kind of a medium gray, right? But maybe I want it really bright, and maybe I want just a little kiss of light. And I, as the photographer, want to be able to control that. So I prefer manual mode, but you can use TTL mode if you play around with it enough. So you can see that's all it is. It goes back to manual mode here. I'm going to go ahead and spin this around and see. You can see I start at 1/8 power. That's where mine is. And then it goes up in 10th increments, and then it goes to quarter power. So a quarter power is twice as powerful as 1/8 power. If we go up one more stop, we get to 1/2. 1/2 power is twice as powerful as quarter power. Okay, we go up one more. 1:1, that's full power. That is as strong as this flash will get. It's usually not strong enough to actually overpower the sun because this flash it just is not hardy enough. It's not meaty enough. It's not a big enough flash to be able to overpower the sun. But 1:1 on this is still pretty powerful. And if we just spin this dial, we can go all the way back down. It's kind of hard to see. And we can go all the way back down, 1/28, 1/256. So that is just a little tiny kiss of light. That is not very powerful. It takes less time for your flash to actually refresh if you use lower power on it. So that's one advantage. If you're using 1-to-1 the entire day, you're going to drain your battery faster, but it's also going to take time for it to recycle in between each pop, right? It goes pop. It's going to wait a little bit to do it. If you're shooting at 8th power or 16th power, it's going to go pop, pop. And if you want to just keep shooting, you can just keep shooting and it'll keep up with it. There's not much of a recycle time on there. Okay, so other pieces on here that I kind of wanted to look at is we've got this group channel up here in the top right. If we go ahead and choose that, you can see right next to my 1/8 power that it has moved now from group A to group B, to group C, to group D, to group E, and then back to A. So why in the world would you have the availability of 5 different groups to actually use on your flashes? Well, there are lots of scenarios where you would use 2 different groups, and maybe that's all you use. I usually like to, if I'm setting up a scene and I'm shooting a bride and a groom, I'm shooting engagement sessions, seniors, whatever it is, I want to have my main light. So whatever light I'm using to provide the most amount of light, I want to usually put in group A, because that's the way that my brain works. And say as I'm playing around with my settings and I'm getting people set up, my subjects set up, and I'm shooting, and I get group A set and it's perfect when it is at half power. Okay, so I know group A is at half power. And say I take a couple photos and I like them, but I'm like, oh, this would be killer photo if I could place a flash behind them and hide it by their bodies and shoot right back at the camera so I can get some cool rim light on them, some light that goes around and maybe separates them from the background. But I don't want that at full power or half power or quarter power. I might want it all the way down to like 1/16th power. So I would grab a separate AD200 and I would set it in group B, because now it's not the primary one. A, I want my primary light to be set on, and B might just be this flash unit set at a much lower setting, but I have it set to group B so that I can control it from my trigger separately from my main light. I don't want to turn them both down. I don't want to turn them both up. Sometimes you want to actually have the flexibility to be able to control the light power differently. Now, with these lights, another cool thing about it is you don't actually have to go around to the back of the light and turn this up and down. Like I'm showing you, that is one option, is to go around to each one of your lights and keep trying to do it. But once you start playing with your trigger that goes on your camera, you will notice that you could do it all from your camera position. So if you get everything set up and you're ready to go, you don't actually need to leave your position to turn up or down any of the lights. You can all do it remotely, just using the trigger that's on the top of your camera. So other modes and stuff that are on here, we've got this little light bulb that's on here. This is the modeling light. And you can see, I'm gonna put this up against my body. You'll see, I turn it on. You can kind of see, right, a little bit of light on here. Modeling lights are cool because they allow you to see what the camera is kind of seeing, right? I mean, it's a cool idea. Downside to it is that it drains a lot of your battery power, right? You're just turning this thing into a giant flashlight. It will still flash when it needs to flash, but it's giving you a preview of kind of where the light actually is. Problem with it is, one, that it drains a big portion of your battery, but it also isn't bright enough to actually show you what the light is going to do under realistic conditions. If you're outside shooting with this and you turn on this little tiny flashlight like this that doesn't do a whole lot, you can see it. I'm in a dark studio and it kind of lights me. But if you're outside and it's super bright, you're not even going to be able to see this modeling light. So I typically turn it off because it just drains my battery. But it is an option in a studio environment or where you don't have a ton of light to be able to see the direction and the quality of the light. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off. The next one we talked about already, this is your preview, that red one, the flash button. If we go ahead and hit that, it will actually go ahead and flash. The next one to it is this little radio signal. I typically will just keep that on. If you turn it on, I think that it will go into a different mode where it reads other flashes in the room and it just goes off. It has like a photo eye, a sensor on it. I don't typically want to do that. I want to control it through my radio signal that is coming from the trigger that's on the top of my camera. So this is the mode that I typically keep it in. so that I'm able to do that. There's an entire menu system in here that you can also go through. It's not very complicated, but if you want to turn off settings like standby power and how long it's actually active before it turns off if you're not using it, then that's a good idea also. But I don't want to go into that level of detail just for this video since we are kind of just starting to cover the equipment. All right, so the next big question that you guys might have is how do we actually get this thing to go off using our camera? Well, we do it using this little device here. This is a flash trigger that goes on the top of our camera, and you will notice that they are kind of model specific. On this one, you can see it says X Pro C next to it, X Pro C. The C stands for Canon, so there's X Pro Ins for Nikons and X Pro S for Sony, and then there might be other ones out there for other camera manufacturers, but those are the three ones that we have here at the college. So if we look at this and we look at the settings, I'm going to go ahead and just turn this on just a little bit. Whoops. I'll start with it off. You can see that you got two different on buttons here. I always just both turn them to on so that it's up and going. That will light up the screen like this, then you guys can actually see it. Now, one of the first things that we see in the top left-hand corner here is that little icon that says, or the little thing that says channel 5 on it. Well, this can shoot on a bunch of different channels depending on if you want to fire flashes that are maybe in a different room, or maybe there is a bunch of photographers working together at the college or at a convention and they're all using the same technology. It'd be pretty bad if you were firing other photographers' lights. So the way that we separate this out is by channels. I'm going to go ahead and since this is on channel 5 and this one's on channel 1, we actually will not be able to fire it, but we can easily change it. We got to get them both on the same channel. Let's just choose channel 1 for now. So that's what our flash is set at. We come up here, we see that we have channel 5, but if we hold down this very first button right here, you'll see that channel 5 will be highlighted, and then I can spin all the way through these. Goes all the way up to 32 or so, but I want to get it to 1. There we go, 1. I'm just going to go ahead and hit. Hope you guys can see that with the glare. Hit the set button, and then that will actually save it. So from here, you can actually see when I'm talking about the different modes and stuff, we can turn these on and off, and we can adjust these different powers. Right now, I don't have a flash set up in group B, so I just don't even want to use that one, which is totally fine. I want to come over here and I want to talk about group A, because remember, that's the one that I set for this one, group A, and I can just go ahead and rotate this. This will be sitting on top of my camera, so it's not awkward like this as I'm showing you guys. It's on your camera, and you'll be able to set that, and then you'll be able to control the power, and once you hit set, it will then, so right now this is set to 1:1, this will be set at 1:1. You don't have to go back to the back of this flash unit to adjust it. You can just do it all from the comfort of your camera. There's a lot of different options and menu stuff in here, but I don't want to cover all of them. You can go ahead and play with them a little bit if you want. Can turn on the modeling lights. That's what this one here that says MOD says. You can turn them on and you can turn them off. You can control all of them at one time. So if you wanted to raise the power all at once, you could do that. You could hit the sync button, and that will put it in high sync speed mode, which means you can take photos of something with a shutter speed that's faster than maybe 1/200th or 1/250th of a second. We're not going to play with that a whole lot. There might be something coming up in the semester where we do something with high-speed sync. There definitely is a purpose for it, but as we are kind of starting off with these flash units, I don't want to go ahead and put that out there quite yet and cover it in detail just because it's a little bit complicated. So we're going to go ahead and turn off the high-speed sync. The next one, if you hit that, you can see that other little icon. That is rear curtain sync. Again, that is it's useful completely. I've used it before. It's in certain situations. It can be handy, but we're not going to cover it today just because it's a level of detail that we just don't need to cover. But you can absolutely look it up and play with it in future assignments, and maybe we'll actually cover it coming up here in a few other assignments. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. We can also go ahead and switch modes for some of this stuff. We talked about the multi-mode, which is like stroboscopic, so that's a possibility. I like to go ahead and put it in manual mode. I'm going to take it out of rear curtain sync, and then you'll be good to go. So this will actually get mounted onto your camera, and we'll do a video with that here in a little bit about getting it set up and getting your camera settings set up, although they will be different based on the camera manufacturer. But I'll show you to go ahead how to get it set up and start using it.